Hello and welcome to the Pathfinder Show, speaking to mind, body, and spirit. I am Toni Gorman, your host, and today's show is being brought to you by Lois Ridley, speaker for family concerns. Are you someone that is about to embark on the college journey, or do you know of someone that is? If so, today's show is for you. And I have someone here today who's going to help you with that. And her name is Kathleen Stark. Kathleen, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you, Toni. I'm excited to be here.
I'm just thrilled. So before we get into our conversation about how you can help with that, I want to share with the viewers that this is not going to be the last time you're going to see Kathleen here on the Pathfinder Show. She's actually going to be a new addition to the show. She is a holistic life coach, and her position here will be to speak directly to kids, children that are leaving high school and heading to college, and those that are already in college. So just want you to know that. So Kathleen, let me ask you first of all, what made you decide to get into social work?
Social work for me really was a way to get out into the community and start helping others find their way in life. I saw that there was a huge need in my community for more social workers. For social workers, it is basically a job where we go and help each person in their area that they need in their life. We get to work in agencies, private practices, hospitals, palliative care, which is a hospice care. We can even be life coaches and help people move through. I saw an opportunity to fill that purpose in my life of always wanting to help people.
I know your story. Do you want to give us a little tidbit of your story?
Absolutely. So I am a domestic violence survivor. I met my ex-husband at the time when I was 15 years old. And during that time, you know, when you're 15, you're an adolescent, you're trying to find your way. And then you meet a guy and he tells you all the things that he makes you feel good and happy because you're 15.
Yeah.
All those endorphins start running up really high. I didn't know that I was going to get in this relationship that was going to be 14 years later, leaving a domestic violence situation. And that was physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. That process, though, helped me become the person I am today.
I know it has. I know. Well, thank you for sharing that. So tell me, how do you work with someone when you're doing life coaching? What are the steps that you take when you're coaching?
When I work with somebody, the first thing is I want to hear their story.
Very good.
I want to know why they're seeking help in the first place. Oftentimes people are seeking help due to circumstances in their life. And I want to be able to hear what that circumstance is. I won't be able to understand unless I sit down and with them and assess and help them walk through that.
So tell me, how did you decide to work with the transitionals? How'd that come about for you?
Well, I am a mom of 4, so I have some transitional adults in my home. And I've worked with them in the certain agencies. I also saw a need that they're so confused at this time and that they're on a slippery slope. Their brain is still developing, and their brain isn't done developing until the age of 26 years old. So from being an adolescent all the way to 26, there's a lot going on. Wanting to work with adolescents to help them see that they have a purpose.
Thank you so much for doing this. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine. No, they really need to see that they have a purpose.
They do. They really do. And what I have noticed is a lot of high schoolers and the college age group, they seem to be overlooked. I mean, we're all worried about them, you know, when they're in kindergarten, when they're in elementary school, and I know that middle school is a big deal, but it seems like when they hit high school to college, they're just kind of lost, and there's really no one to guide them and to direct them. So I am just so grateful to have you on the show, speaking to them and helping them to get through the process and guiding them through that. So let's talk about some things that I have noticed about this particular age group. And I think that you are probably an expert in this area. And talk about how the gut and the brain connect, and what our kids need to know. Just
Wow.
yeah.
It's so important. So the gut and brain connection, science has found so many research behind the gut and brain connection. Adolescents' diet, for one, isn't the best. So why not start teaching them at a young age so they don't get into these unhealthy habits of processed foods, sodas, just that junky, sugary foods that are out there. And by doing that, I want to work with the family as well, because there's a connection with how the family eats, is how the child's going to eat later on in life. The gut and brain connection helps with hormones, it helps with sleep, it helps with moods, it helps with keeping you on basically a stable road where you're not going to be experiencing that fight and flight, which is anxiety. And serotonin is in our gut. That is where
What is serotonin?
Serotonin is the happy hormone, and that we make 90% of that in our gut.
I didn't know that. I thought it had to do with light.
No, we have many neurotransmitters in the gut that is created, and so that's why we call it the gut and brain connection. So 85% of the immunity is in the gut, and 90% of the serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, is in the gut, which helps bring it up when your gut's good. But with our teenagers drinking soda and all the Starbucks and the coffee places
And the dollar menu at the fast food
right.
places.
What happens is after a while, the gut can only take on so much of that to ward off the offenders, and bad bacteria starts building up in the gut. Weight gain, sleep problems, ADHD issues, anxiety, depression, insomnia, all that starts creating a battle zone for the person's
And needless
gut.
to say, in my opinion, they start to self-medicate, which takes them down a whole nother path, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Because so many of them think, and I know that it's, I think smoking weed is legal in some places, but so many of them think that that's all they need and that's just going to soothe them. But if they only knew, in my opinion, and you correct me if I'm wrong, exercise and eating right can really help to cut that anxiety. I know it helps me personally.
Exercise, getting out in the sun, building
Okay.
up that vitamin D. If you are outside for a good 15 minutes without any sunscreen, you're going to get that vitamin D. And then I definitely tell people to put on sunscreen after 15 minutes. Also, exercising. What a wonderful way to build up those endorphins in your body. And those endorphins are going to help lift your mood.
Okay.
Serotonin levels as you're exercising is going to lift your mood.
Okay.
And eating healthy, eating clean, good food, and kind of reducing the sugar intake, taking the bag of chips away and replacing it with crunchy vegetables like celery, apples, carrots, even the grapes, because they kind of pop and it's sweet.
Right.
That's a better replacement than the bag of chips and the granola bars, because believe it or not, granola bars is filled with sugar. You have to read the label.
Yeah, you do.
And so that's what I always suggest to parents when they're asking me, what should I do and how would I help my child have a better eating habits? And what I find is when you teach that to the parents, they teach it to their children, and then it's an ongoing positive habitual behavior starts being created.
Okay. All right, so let's look at a scenario where we've got a high schooler who is getting ready to embark on the college journey. And let's say that, they suffer from anxiety, and, just the thought of it is already going to make it peak. And how would you coach them, to make that transition? What would that look like?
I would want to sit down and ask them, when do they feel the most anxious?
Okay.
What is their morning routine looking like in the morning?
Okay.
How do they start their day? Because that's the first thing. Are they waking up and rushing to their class, on the way stopping at the Union Hall where the students go to get their breakfast and coffee, or all they drinking is coffee and then not eating anything? Those are the ways I look at it when I'm working with someone in college years.
Okay.
The reason for me working with them like that, Because if they're just running on adrenaline,
Yep.
that adrenaline is going to finally burn out, cortisol levels are going to start rising, and then their anxiety levels are going to go through the roof, and then they're finding that they're not sleeping at night because their cortisol levels are so used to
high.
running.
Yeah. And then the whole adrenal fatigue thing just kind of slips in the door too.
Yes.
So, all right, so we've got that piece.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between a life coach and a therapist or a counselor? I know that one has to do with, I don't know, I guess being licensed or what have you, or a degree. I don't know. Explain to me what's the difference in that, because here you're going to be doing the life coach piece. So
Right.
what's the difference?
Well, the difference is at this point, when you can get a master's degree in social work, you are allowed to do some types of life coaching,
Okay,
but not therapeutic.
got it.
And therapeutic is more for a professional therapist that is fully licensed,
Mm-hmm.
or when you become a licensed graduate social worker, which I'm going to be doing soon myself.
Okay,
You still need to be supervised for 3 years.
okay,
That way you have someone to go back to if you run into some issues or have some questions. You have that support.
okay.
And then when you become a full licensed therapist, then you're able to do the therapeutic
pieces.
pieces where you can work in hospitals and help people, psychiatric help, really more towards the mental health field, where a life coach is really there for people with some mild difficulties in their life and then needing that support and goal setting.
That's exactly what I wanted to know. So you help your clients to, obviously, I heard you say you sit with them
Absolutely.
and you're extracting information from them, and then you help them to set goals. How often, when you're doing life coaching, how often do you speak with them or see them, or do they set goals? What does that look like?
In the beginning, I asked them what are they looking for?
Okay.
Because as I always tell my clients, I'm not a mind reader. I need to know what is exactly. Give me specifics. Because without specifics, I don't know how to help them. So say someone is just trying to learn how to say no more often.
Okay.
And they're more of a yes person, and they find when they're saying yes all the time is a barrier in their life. We start off with simple goals of how to build up the confidence to learn how to say no.
Okay.
And people are always surprised that when I talk about that, well, why don't people just say no? It's not that easy.
No, it's not.
It's not. What's their background? Were they always a yes person? Does someone always make them that yes person? Did they feel bullied or scared or intimidated? So I start breaking it down very small, simple steps.
Very good.
Because you can't eat a whole elephant at one time. That's my famous little saying. I love saying that because you can't. And that is the way I approach it. And it's over 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how many times the person wants to come in and work on those goals.
Okay, so they would need to come to see you. Do you give them any phone time, any Skype, or what do you do other than in person?
If they're distance from me, I would want to do Skyping. There's another app called Zoom meeting, which I would send them a link and they can come to me through the Zoom meeting, conference meeting, or they can do a simple phone call. I like the Skyping in the Zoom meeting because I get to see them.
Absolutely.
Because people don't always show or present over the phone.
Of course not.
And when I'm seeing a person, I'm not just listening to their inflection in their voice. I'm actually looking at their nonverbal cues, their body language. How are they sitting? When I say something to them, what does their body tell me when I say something that has to do with confidence? Do they shift in their seat? Or do they lean forward and they want to know more what I'm talking about? That body language is very important to me.
Okay, all right. And so your clients are, give us the age again. I know we said high school, but are we recently graduated from high school, or we see someone as early as 9th grade, freshman, up to
I would say 16 and on.
16 and on? Okay.
Yeah, between 16 and 26 is a good age range, because at this time the person is trying to find their self, their identity, but they have their peers. They're comparing themselves to other people. They're comparing themselves to colleges, when they get to the college, when they step on campus, am I going to be as good as that person over there? It's a lot of stress.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's a great deal of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're a holistic life coach.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference from just a regular life coach and a holistic life coach? Are you helping them with diet? What's the difference?
With the holistic pieces, it's mind, body, and spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And where we go back to the brain and gut connection. Mm-hmm. The brain and the gut are very much, they work together. Mm-hmm. And the mind and body is so important. So what you eat is really what you are. So, yeah, it's true. It's not a myth.
Okay.
So if you're eating fast food all the time, you're eating very high processed foods, very high salty foods, sugary foods, they show that actually brings down the brain function. And then it brings that sleepiness, fogginess to their way they're thinking, that they can't clarify their thoughts anymore. But when they're eating healthy and clean food, it's a reverse effect. Mm-hmm. More clarity, they're more focused, they're not feeling anxious, their gut's getting all the good bacteria that we want in the gut, and everything's starting to balance out. So I really do feel working with people on their diets helps also their mentality.
I couldn't agree with you more, because there was a time when I ate really, really bad because I was a new mom and I was always just doing this and doing that, and I just crashed. I totally did. And my doctor, who's a holistic and Western doctor, she does both. We addressed the diet and a few other things. Some counseling pieces were needed, and because this show is not a religious show at all, but I am indeed a Christ follower, and I say that to say that I had to address some spiritual pieces as well, and because it can't be all spiritual, it can't be all just the therapist, it just can't just be the doctor. That's why I say talking to mind, body, and spirit. All three of those things have to come together. So whatever your faith is or your belief is, you've got to bring that into play. In my opinion, that's really important. So I wanted to ask you, how often do you find that you need to work alongside or pull in the parents? Does that happen very often when you're coaching?
In the beginning, you will pull the parents in separately from the adolescent.
Okay.
And then you talk to the adolescent separately. And the reason we do that as a life coach, even as therapists, and I've learned that from a lot of the therapists that I've worked with, you want to get a take on what's happening in the family. So if you pull everyone in at the same time, what's going to happen is mom's got something to say, dad's got something to say, and then the child's over there saying nothing. Because the child feels like, I don't have a voice anyway, so I'm not going to say anything. So pulling them apart, you kind of get a sense of somewhat what the parents are dealing with, and then the child will end up saying everything that they were dealing with, because they don't have the parents in the same room.
I believe you. I know that happens for sure. And sort of back to the diet piece. Now, I don't know if this is related, and I don't even know if you know, but I'm looking at some of the way, and I guess some adults do it too, so it might be all of us. I'm thinking about the teens, and they get into their cars and they are just driving like they're in an ambulance or something. And I don't know if that's just a part of what's going on in their brain with their food and their lifestyle, and all of that stuff just shows up on the road. And does that make a contribution possibly, do you think, the whole thing of eating? And I just think that it's just really sporadic sometimes. You'll find young people just like all over the place on the road, and it's really, really scary. And I'm assuming that if they changed their diet and got some other healthy components into their life, then maybe we would see less of that as well.
Well, it also is their environment. They're mirroring what they deal with when they go home. Wow. So if their parents are like that, they're just going to do the exact same thing their parents are doing. So if you're a parent and you're saying, don't text and drive, don't be eating and drinking, but you do it, what does that say to the child? Well, if you're doing it, why are you yelling at me for doing the exact same thing you're doing? So we have to look at that piece too. We live in a fast-paced world. High school students are filled with so much stress versus when I was in high school. The type of testing they have to do, when they have to start looking at colleges, the PSAT, which is the standardized testing in the beginning to take the real SAT, peer pressure. It's just a different dynamics. So again, their brain doesn't fully develop till they're 26 years of age. So they're impulsive, they're more risk takers, and they still feel that they're very immortal.
Yeah, they do. They still feel
Yes, and I feel if you have more of an open conversation with your children, you'll see a difference. Put down your phone. You know, you ever see parents at restaurants with their children and no one's talking because everybody's on their phone, everyone's looking at their phone. Can you imagine what it would be like if you just threw the phones in the middle and you actually looked your child in the eyes and be interested in what they're talking about? Huge change in behavior just with that, because now they're feeling, wow, my mom or my dad is interested in what I'm saying. I have somewhat of a voice and I have someone listening to me.
That's true. And I'm hearing that more and more a lot now about putting down the phone. I think that we're starting to realize, yes, the phone is quite valuable, it's helpful, but we're just losing that communication. And I'm hearing that from a lot of people like yourself. So that must be a change that's going to be coming about. What are some of the ways, in your opinion, that we can help this particular age group not to spend so much time on their phones and get involved in other activities? I know now, I see in the grocery stores and a lot of places, they have these little books now where you can just color. And I guess that helps with anxiety.
Medallias?
Yeah, is that what, yeah, okay. Is that something that would help? I mean, because you're still holding something, I'm thinking. You still get to do something. So what are some other ways? Or do you have anything that comes to mind that could help them to put the phone down?
Get outside.
Okay. I've heard that too.
Parents need to be an example of that.
So the parents need to go outside first.
The parents need to go outside too. Yeah. Because what I have seen is parents are also addicted to their cell phones. And so instead of listening to their child talking or even going outside with their child, they're on the cell phone. Or they're getting mad at their child for interrupting because they need to post something on Facebook. Is that more important than listening to your child? You know, and I have been actually guilty of that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can, oh no, and I had to put my phone down, and that just, okay, I'm very sorry, I'll apologize, because I realize it's rude, and you're disengaging yourself with your child. And when they're in high school, it goes by so fast. Before you know it, they're graduating, and then they're in college. And then they're gone out of your house.
Gone.
And whatever happens outside of the house, you don't know, because they're no longer in your house. They're no longer under your care.
Yeah.
So get that connection, open up the lines of communication, and you'll start seeing a huge difference in their behavior. And get outside, because parents are stressed out too.
Yes, we are.
Yes. They're stressed out, they're overworked. Some parents are overworked and underpaid, so then they're worried about the finances and how they're going to make things work together and how they're going to pay this bill, or maybe they might have to not pay that bill just to pay another bill, and plus you're trying to raise a family. And then they have a teenager who knows everything and is trying to step into their independence. And going outside, taking a walk, doing activities actually kind of brings things down and centers the family. And then teaching the family how to eat well also helps center the family, and people, they start feeling better and they start feeling connected. The phones need to go down, and the video games and the computer games also is an addiction.
So I'm hearing you say we need to really go back to some of the basic things.
Very basic, keep it simple. I always say KISS. Keep it simple, sweetie.
Yeah.
That's the KISS. So parents hear that, they're like, I know, but this and this. We all have excuses.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just get it done. Yeah. And stop avoiding, you know, the responsibility of having children, because, you know, they need us. And again, we focus on our children when they are in elementary school.
Yes.
But I think that when they're in high school, they need us just as much.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, they do need us in high school because what they feel is lost. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't know what their identity is. And they act like they do, but when you talk to them alone without the parents, they feel pressured by the parents to know what they need to do already. They feel pressured by the teachers. They feel pressure to fit in with their peers.
Yeah, they do.
And there is the piece of alcohol addiction, cigarette addiction, cannabis addiction, and I can list a whole other things that they can be addicted to.
Yeah.
So really getting that connection back with their family is really really basic for the family to thrive as a whole.
Okay.
And that's where the holistic piece comes in. You want to deal with the mind, body, and spirit, the whole part of a family.
So you've heard that. This is what Kathleen is going to be doing here on the Pathfinder Show. We're planning to have her here twice a month. She may be here in the studio live, or she might come to you by way of Skype here on the show. And right now, Kathleen, I want you to look into the camera, your camera, and just share with them where they can get in touch with you. And you know what? I forgot to mention this. I know that you're also in Plexus, so feel free to mention that as well. So there's your camera.
Absolutely. So you can reach me at holisticsLifeCoachKathleen@gmail.com. I am also an independent Plexus ambassador, where I believe the supplementations of this company is very, very quality, high quality supplementations. And that website, you can go on and check me out there, is shopmyplexus.com/Kathleen Stark. And that's it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really, really, really appreciate everything that you shared today. We could just go on and on.
We could.
And we're going to have a lot more opportunity. And I really do thank you so much for taking this spot here on the Pathfinder Show to help to provide a path for our younger people. And I look forward to seeing you a lot more. And
I know.
I am, and I love you dearly. So this is the Pathfinder Show for today, and I hope you heard everything that Kathleen had to say. And please continue to tune in. You can find me on Facebook, Toni Gorman. And if you desire to be on the show, or if you've got some ideas or some thoughts, or if you even want to reach out to connect with Kathleen, you've got her information as well. Again, I am Toni Gorman, your Pathfinder, and thanks so much for watching today.